Welcome to my Chanel. I didn't know that a single moment could split a life cleanly into before and after. But now, when I look back, I can trace everything to that one push. It happened on an ordinary evening, the kind you forget as soon as it ends. I was standing in her apartment, leaning against the kitchen counter, pretending I was listening while she talked. She moved confidently, comfortably, like someone who had never once questioned who she was allowed to be. She stopped mid-sentence and looked at me. Not through me. At me. You ever wonder, she said slowly, what it would feel like to stop fighting yourself? I laughed. A nervous laugh. The kind that exists only to hide something. I don't fight myself, I said. She raised an eyebrow. One corner of her mouth lifted. That's a lie, she replied calmly. My chest tightened. She walked toward me, opened a drawer, and pulled something out. Soft fabric. Light. Feminine. She placed it gently on the counter between us, like it was nothing dangerous at all.
Just try it, she said.
One time. That's all. I stared at it. My heart began to pound so hard it felt like it was shaking my ribs. I'm not, I started. She stepped closer, her voice lower now. No labels. No meaning. Just curiosity. I should have walked away. I should have laughed again and made a joke. I should have said no. Instead, my hand moved. The fabric was warmer than I expected.
Softer.
When my fingers brushed it, a shiver ran straight through me, sharp, electric, terrifying. Why does this feel right? I thought, panic rising. She didn't touch me. She didn't pressure me. She just watched. That's the push, she said quietly. You felt it, didn't you? I nodded without realizing it. That night, alone in my bathroom, I locked the door and stood in front of the mirror.
My hands shook as I changed.
Every sound felt too loud. Every breath felt stolen. And then, I looked up. The person staring back at me wasn't someone else. It was me, stripped of something heavy I didn't know I'd been carrying. My knees weakened. What have I done? I whispered. But beneath the fear, beneath the shock, something inside me smiled for the first time. The next morning, the world didn't reset itself just because I'd changed. My alarm went off like always.
Same sound. Same time.
Same ceiling staring back at me. For a brief second, I convinced myself that the night before had been a dream, something my mind had created and would now politely forget. Then I caught my reflection in the dark screen of my phone. My stomach dropped. Nothing looked different on the outside yet, but I was. The memory of that mirror, the softness, the relief, the fear, clung to me like a second skin. I moved differently getting out of bed, slower, more aware, as if my body was quietly asking permission for every step. At work, the office felt hostile in a way it never had before. The lights were too bright. The air too cold. Conversations around me blurred into noise. Every time someone said my name, it felt misplaced. Like they were calling for someone who wasn't fully there anymore. Morning, Mark said, passing my desk. I nodded. Morning. My voice sounded wrong to my own ears. Too firm. Too familiar. Throughout the day, I caught people glancing at me, quick looks they probably didn't even realize they were giving. I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself paranoia was part of guilt. But guilt about what? Nothing had happened. No one knew. I hadn't crossed some visible line. And yet, I felt exposed. At lunch, I barely touched my food. My hands trembled when I lifted my fork. Across the table, Sarah leaned forward. You okay? She asked softly.
Too softly.
Yes, I said immediately. Too fast. Just tired. She studied me for a moment longer than necessary, then smiled politely. You've been saying that a lot lately. The words hit harder than they should have. Had I changed that much already? When I got home, I dropped my bag and leaned against the door, heart racing. The silence was deafening. No one watching. No one judging. I exhaled for what felt like the first time all day. I went to the mirror again. This time I didn't flinch. I studied my face, my eyes especially. They looked restless, awake in a way they never had before. But fear still lived there, crouched behind the curiosity. What are you becoming? I asked myself. That night, my mother called. Her voice was warm, familiar. Safe. You sound different, she said suddenly. My chest tightened. Different how? I don't know, she replied thoughtfully. Lighter, but also distracted. I closed my eyes. I'm fine, I said. Just going through some stuff.
She paused.
Just don't disappear on yourself, okay? After the call ended, I sat on the edge of my bed, hands clenched together. I wasn't disappearing. I was emerging. And that scared me more than anything ever had. That night, I didn't turn off the lights right away. I sat on my bed, staring at the closed closet like it might open on its own. My heart thudded slowly now, not panicked, but alert. A quiet awareness hummed through me, like I was standing at the edge of something deep and unfamiliar. No one knows, I whispered to myself. Saying it out loud made it feel safer. Like a spell. I stood, crossed the room, and opened the closet door. Everything inside looked the same as it always had. Shirts, jeans, jackets, all lined up neatly. Familiar. Predictable. But hidden behind them, tucked away like a secret I wasn't supposed to have, was something else. I reached for it with deliberate slowness. The fabric slid between my fingers, sending a shiver up my arms. It wasn't just soft, it was forgiving. It moved with me, not against me. I held it up, watching how it caught the light, how different it felt from anything I usually wore. This doesn't mean anything, I told myself again. Yet my hands were already trembling. Changing felt ceremonial now. Each movement carried weight. I peeled away the old layers carefully, folding them instead of tossing them aside. When I stepped into the new clothes, my breath caught. The sensation was immediate. The way the fabric rested against my skin, the way it shaped me, hinted at something instead of hiding everything. I wrapped my arms around myself instinctively, goosebumps rising. I walked toward the mirror slowly, like I was afraid the reflection might reject me. But it didn't. The person looking back at me felt closer, emotionally closer, than the version I'd known my whole life. My posture softened without effort. My shoulders dropped. My face relaxed into something quieter, gentler. I tilted my head. So this is you, I murmured. I experimented in silence. A step here, a turn there. I practiced standing, walking, sitting, becoming aware of my body in ways I never had before. I watched how my movements changed when I stopped forcing them to be rigid. I found myself smiling, then laughing softly, covering my mouth like someone might hear me through the walls. I opened my phone camera next, heart racing again. Seeing myself from another angle made everything feel more real and more dangerous. I adjusted my hair, touched my face hesitantly, then more confidently. I didn't recognize the warmth blooming in my chest. Was it happiness? I whispered words aloud, testing my voice, raising it slightly,
Softening it.
letting emotion sit behind it instead of pushing it down. Hello, I said gently. The sound startled me. It wasn't fake. It wasn't forced. It felt natural. Suddenly fear surged again. What if this isn't just curiosity? What if I can't put this back? I sank onto the bed, hugging my knees, torn between excitement and dread. My mind raced with images, friends' faces, co-workers' whispers, my mother's concerned eyes. But underneath all that noise was a quieter truth. I didn't want to stop. I stayed like that for hours, changing small details, trying new things, learning myself inch by inch. By the time I finally undressed, the absence felt physical, like I'd removed more than clothing. Lying in bed afterward, staring at the ceiling, my heart still fluttering, I realized something terrifying and beautiful. This wasn't an escape. It was an introduction. The first time I left my apartment like that, my hand hovered over the door handle for a full minute. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Each thump felt like a countdown. You don't have to do this, I told myself. But another voice, quieter, steadier, answered back. You already are. I didn't go far. Just downstairs. Just outside. Just enough to feel the world touch this version of me. The hallway felt longer than usual. Every step echoed. I imagined doors opening, eyes watching, questions forming. My shoulders tensed, then slowly relaxed as nothing happened. The elevator ride was agony. A couple stepped in on the second floor. I kept my eyes forward, breathing shallowly, aware of every inch of myself. The woman smiled politely.
"Hi," she said.
"Hi," I replied. My voice didn't crack. My legs didn't buckle. The elevator continued downward, like this was the most normal thing in the world. When the doors opened, fresh air hit my face, and I almost cried. Outside, everything felt sharper, brighter. The sun warmed my skin differently. The sidewalk beneath my feet felt solid, grounding me in the moment. I walked, at first stiffly, then more naturally. I noticed how my body adjusted on its own, how my stride shortened, how my arms moved differently when I stopped controlling them. A man passed me and didn't look twice. A group of teenagers laughed nearby, not at me, just near me. The world didn't collapse. I went to a small cafe a few blocks away, one I'd never visited before. Somewhere neutral. Somewhere I didn't exist yet. "What can I get you?" the barista asked. Her tone was casual, uninterested, normal. "I'll have a coffee," I said, then corrected myself softly.
"Please."
She smiled.
"Sure."
When she called out the order a few minutes later, she used this voice, this presence. No hesitation. I wrapped my hands around the warm cup and sat by the window, heart full and racing at the same time. I belonged there. That realization scared me almost as much as it thrilled me. Over the next few weeks, I took small risks. A trip to the bookstore, a walk through the park, a quiet evening grocery run. Each time, the anxiety arrived first, sharp and demanding, but it never stayed. In its place came something new. Confidence. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a gentle assurance that grew every time nothing terrible happened. I learned how people reacted to me now. Some smiled. Some didn't notice. A few stared, but even that lost its power. Their reactions no longer defined me. Inside, something shifted. I stopped thinking of this as pretending. I stopped counting minutes until I could go back. Instead, I found myself wishing I could stay longer, be more. One afternoon, catching my reflection in a store window, I paused. I liked who I saw, not because I looked perfect, but because I looked honest. That was the moment I knew this wasn't a phase. It was growth. I should have known the balance wouldn't last. The more comfortable I became, the more careless I got, not reckless, just hopeful. Hope has a way of making you forget how sharp the world can be. It happened on a Tuesday. I'd stayed out longer than usual the night before, enjoying a version of myself that felt effortless now. When I woke up late, panic replaced calm. I rushed, changed quickly, scrubbed away traces, pulled on the familiar armor I used to wear every day. But something was wrong. I could feel it the moment I stepped into the office. Conversations dipped when I walked past. Not dramatically, just enough to notice. A silence that lingered half a second too long. Eyes that followed me, then looked away. I sat at my desk, hands clammy, pulse loud. "You okay?" Sarah asked, appearing beside me again. Her voice was gentle, but her eyes were searching. "I'm fine," I said automatically. She didn't leave. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Because you don't seem like yourself lately." I almost laughed at the irony. Before I could respond, my manager appeared at the edge of my desk. "Can you come with me for a moment?" There it was. The walk to the office felt like a slow march towards something inevitable. My thoughts spiraled. Images of exposure, humiliation, explanations that wouldn't make sense to anyone but me. The door closed softly behind us. He didn't sit right away. Neither did I. "I want to be clear," he said carefully. "This isn't disciplinary." My chest loosened slightly, but not enough. "There have been questions," he continued. "Concerns. People are confused." I swallowed. "About my work?"
"No," he said. "About you."
Silence stretched between us. I felt that familiar instinct rise. The urge to shrink, to deny, to put everything back where it belonged before anyone noticed. But I also felt something else. Exhaustion. I haven't changed who I am at my core, I said slowly. I'm just letting myself exist more honestly. He studied me. Not unkindly. Not accusingly. That honesty, he said, might be uncomfortable for some people. I know, I replied. And for you, he asked. I didn't answer immediately. Images flooded my mind. The mirror, the cafe, the warmth in my chest when I walked freely, the dread of hiding again. For me, I said finally, voice steady, it's the first time I've felt okay. He nodded once. We don't need details, he said. But we do need transparency about how this affects the workplace. This was the moment. I could promise to keep things quiet.
Separate.
Controlled. I could fold myself back into the smaller shape everyone recognized. Or I could stand here and choose myself. I'm not going back, I said quietly. Saying it out loud felt like stepping off a cliff and discovering solid ground beneath my feet. The days after that conversation felt strangely calm. Not easy, but clear. I stopped splitting my life into before and after. I stopped rehearsing explanations in my head. When people asked questions, I answered simply. When they didn't, I let the silence exist without filling it with apologies. Something remarkable happened when I stopped hiding. The world adjusted. Not perfectly. Not instantly. But enough. At work, some people avoided eye contact. Others surprised me with quiet support. Sarah started having lunch with me again, like nothing had changed, except she listened more closely now. You seem lighter, she said one afternoon. I smiled. I am. Outside of work, I found community in unexpected places. People who didn't ask me to explain myself. Who recognized the courage it takes to be seen and treated it with respect instead of curiosity. I learned how to move through the world with confidence, not because I was fearless, but because I was honest. I changed how I dressed gradually, intentionally. Each choice felt like a declaration. This is mine. This is me. I stopped flinching when I caught my reflection. I started smiling back. One evening, I stood in front of the mirror again, the same one that had once terrified me. This time, I didn't search for flaws. I saw strength. I saw softness. I saw a person who had survived years of silence and finally learned how to speak. My mother visited not long after. She watched me carefully when I opened the door. Really watched me. Then she stepped forward and hugged me without hesitation. You look happy, she said. I am, I replied, tears burning my eyes. She held my face in her hands. That's all I ever wanted for you. Something inside me settled permanently then. I wasn't borrowing this life anymore. I was living it. I used to think transformation had to be loud, that it had to come with declarations, arguments, and dramatic moments where everything shattered before it could be rebuilt. I thought becoming yourself meant losing everything you were. I was wrong. For me, it started with a push so small I almost ignored it. A moment of curiosity. A hand reaching forward instead of pulling back. A single choice not to look away. And from that moment, everything unfolded quietly, but truthfully. I didn't become someone new. I became someone whole. There are still days when fear whispers, when the old habits tug at me, asking me to hide again, to be easier for others to understand. But now I know something I didn't before. I don't owe the world my silence. Every time I choose myself, even in the smallest ways, I feel that same warmth rise in my chest, the feeling that first night in front of the mirror, when I finally saw me. If you're listening to this and feeling that ache, that question you've been avoiding, know this. You don't have to know where the path leads. You don't need permission to be curious. You don't need to explain your becoming to anyone. Sometimes, all it takes is one push, and the courage to let it change you.